Today's my birthday. Astrologically, the month before your birthday feels fraught, like an uphill climb with a heavy backpack. That is because you're clearing and finishing all loose ends from the year to begin anew on your solar return. But besides the astrological explanation, I often wondered why my birthday felt less than celebratory. I noticed I'd actually experienced the reverse, a pattern of loss and rejection on many birthdays that I couldn't logically explain. After I learned my birth story, it made more sense. Our inner being captures a photograph of important events like birth, and it starts a pattern for your life. In astrology, the birthday you have is an imprint so strong it gets burned like a tattoo in your consciousness. My birth story, long forgotten, had been tattooed into my subconscious like a book I never wanted to read. As an adopted person in midlife, I began to finally understand why my birthday felt the way it did, rather than thinking something was wrong with me. In case this will make sense for you, here's my story. I was born on a freezing cold January day. My mother had been up late watching Johnny Carson with an uncomfortable stomach. When she realized her water broke, she called her only friend, who picked her up to go to the hospital. After 3 hours of labor, I was born. Since my mother had decided to give me up prior to my birth, she chose not to hold me, but instead had the nurses present me in front of her. Unlike most babies, she chose to admire me from a distance rather than hold me herself, because she said she didn't want to get attached to me if she was giving me away. So the nurses brought me in and showed me to her. Then they took me away to the nursery. After 5 days in the hospital, it was time to leave, and my mother left out the front door at the same time as me. Her into her VW Bug, and me into the social worker's car. At the last minute, my mother was upset. She had never touched me, so she ran up to the social worker's car, who rolled down the window quickly so she could try to put her finger in my tiny hand. But I just cried, and so did she, running back to her car. On that day, I was taken to foster care for my first 2 months of life. I was formally signed away 3 weeks later. My birth record identified that my mother appeared composed as she signed me away in court. The date was February 14th, Valentine's Day. I remained in foster care for 2 months and then was picked up in March to be taken to my permanent adoptive home. Here's what I noticed through the years. January to March has always been an unsettled time for me emotionally. It was a time I even traditionally got sick or felt low or depressed. Life just didn't feel right in the early spring, and it takes me a while to feel better again. Since realizing this information about my birth story, I've become very intentional about creating positive experiences for my birthday. I used to approach not only my birthday, but much of life as if I had little choice, as if what happened to me was just up to other people. The problem with these imprints is that they are unconscious, but still alive. So you can't not feel them. They simmer underneath the surface. But now I am deliberate in choosing for me, and that transformed the way my birthday and my life feels.